Talking
Public Art.
with us, Louise and Laura from Francis Knight Public Art Consultancy.
Conversations with a range of arts practitioners, community activists, planning directors and design teams about how we can make places better by working with artists.
Our role as public art consultants is all about the delicate balance of client expectations to encourage new ways of seeing, developing relationships, connecting people and enabling the creative process.
Today we meet Brigitte Orasinski. Brigitte has been the artistic director of arts organisation Strange Cargo since 2004 and has been involved with their work since 1997. She grew up in Folkestone and studied at Kent Institute Art and Design, now UCA in Canterbury. She was responsible for creating Like the Back of My Hand, Folkestone's first public artwork, and has run a not-for-profit fine art gallery in the town since 1997, showing the work of over 1,000 local, national and international artists.
She oversaw the development of Cheriton Light Festival from 2013 to 2020 and pioneered Charivari Day, Strange Cargo's celebratory carnival for Folkestone, in which over 20,000 young people have been involved since 1997. She describes her practice as participatory in nature, and this is underpinned by Strange Cargo's principles of access, participation and excellence. She has 2 grown-up sons, one of whom is also an artist. Welcome, Brigitte Orasinski. Welcome to Talking Public Art. This is our 3rd series, and it's a special year for us. I think we might have mentioned that we're celebrating 20 years in business this year.
Fantastic! Congratulations.
Thank you. And we're all about longevity. We know that you have also been part of Strange Cargo for 20 years. And that Strange Cargo itself has been an arts organisation for almost 30 years next year, is that right?
Yes, well, I started with Strange Cargo in 97, but I've been artistic director for 20 years, so yes, a long time.
Congratulations to you.
Thank you,
well.
30th anniversary next year for us.
It's incredible. Yeah.
Thank you.
I think considering, the economic landscape, how
Yes,
we
I know.
survive in the arts.
Sometimes you wonder how, you're not quite sure how you've done it, but we're all still here, which is great.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, listen, just tell us a little bit about Strange Cargo, and in particular, we'd love to know how you started working there and what your career path was to artistic director.
Okay, well, I didn't start studying the arts until my early 30s when my children went to school. And I found myself in the early 90s at the University of Creative Arts in Canterbury, studying for a fine art degree. And previous to having children, I worked in admin at the council. I was which actually was quite a boring job, but set me up for what I do now, really. Once I'd learned to be an artist, the role that I was employed to do when I first started at Strange Cargo back in the day was to be a project coordinator. So I had all of those admin skills from my previous life. I had my art degree, so I applied for the job before I graduated, and I got it. So basically, I rolled straight out of university into the job with Strange Cargo. And it was in quite its early days. I had worked with them as a freelancer before, but this was a permanent salaried role. And I've been here ever since. I didn't really think I would still be doing the same job that much later, but it's just a fabulous position to be in as an artist, to be able to plough your own furrow, really, and work out what you would like your art to be. And so that's basically what I've been doing since I started. But the original artistic directors decided that they wanted to go and do other things in 2004, 2005. So I just shifted sideways into that role of artistic director, by which time I'd been well and truly ensconced in the organisation for a while and was quite happy to take that responsibility. But I think what I brought to the company was my fine art practice. I think there's the company has a lot of celebratory roots, and we haven't lost any of that in the mix. But what I brought was my experience of conceptual fine art practice, and I learned through the work that I was doing with Strange Cargo, how to work with large numbers of people through the carnival, through the lantern parades, through all of those sorts of things, but to apply that to fine art practice and to making public art. So that's pretty much been sort of what we've been doing. But the thread of work that the thread that runs through all of Strange Cargo's work is participation. So it may take many different forms. It could be a book, it could be a carnival, it could be a public art book, an exhibition, an object, all sorts of things. But there's always that sense that the community plays an active role in shaping what the project is. But with the same sort of, the same project, the artist is still the artist. We're not asking everybody to be the artist. We're asking for them to work with the artist and to be visible within what is created.
So going back to being the artist then, so when did you realise that you wanted to, I know you said after your children had grown up a little bit, but when did you always know you were an artist, or that you wanted to go to art college, or...?
Yes, I think so. I had a place at art college when I was 16, but, life just, you go to work, don't you? So that's just how the way it was. So it's just the opportunity sort of presented itself a bit further down the line. So it was a 5-year part-time degree, which I would advocate for everybody, because I think it's a wonderful way to study. You get a chance to sort of understand what being an artist is like as part of real life. You're not sort of in a bubble. You are actually sort of living your real life alongside your studies. So you understand when you leave how to continue to do that. So, but I know I was very fortunate that I fell into a job that gave me the opportunity to sort of develop what I do.
I think I agree with you, because I also think that it's good to take time out to think about what you want to do. So I did this. I didn't go straight to art college. I had some time out because I went to a course that wasn't quite right for me. I stopped. And then I thought, okay, and I did work in the real world, part-time sort of, or working in offices and all that sort of stuff, and realised I did want to do it. And I think having that time out made me appreciate it more. And I think I got more out of it as well. I kind of asked more questions, was a bit more curious when I was there. And what was quite nice was there were different mixes of ages as well, I think, which really helped.
Yes.
But I didn't go straight into a job after I came out of art college, so well done you for doing that, because that's a lovely thing to do. And I think it sounds like you've grown in that role as well, haven't you, from in Strange Cargo? You've kind of grown from the beginning.
Yes. I would say what's interesting is I didn't actually appreciate when I was at university that fine art, that participatory practice was part of my thinking, my sort of mindset.
Yeah.
And it's only with sort of a bit of sort of hindsight you look back and think, well, actually I was doing it then. I just didn't really have a name for it.
So how did it, in terms of a Strange Cargo, how did you get involved with them? What was your first sort of...
They advertised a position. They recently, I was the first salaried sort of employee actually. They'd secured some funding and they had a role that they wanted to fill. So they just advertised it. And I thought, well, I'll apply for that. I didn't think I'd get it, but I did.
That's amazing.
Yes, it was great. It was in its infancy at the time. And I had done, as I say, a little bit of freelance work for them. But yes, it was back in the days when we had our main offices in what is now the Creative Quarter in Folkestone, but it wasn't the Creative Quarter then. It was the old High Street. But we had our gallery there for a long time, about 17 or 18 years. But we moved out with the building that I'm in, which you can see behind me.
Looks fabulous, by the way.
Thank you. This is an old factory building in Cheriton, and so the history of it is we used to have a stable block connected to a barn in Folkestone behind the council offices, and had just put together a heritage lottery bid to restore the barn and to turn it into our permanent headquarters. And the application had gone in, and then somebody set fire to it. We don't know what happened. It burst into flames, and so all of that work was gone, and the barn was gone as well. So we had to relocate very, very quickly. And this was a print works. It used to be an electricity substation back in the day. So this is the office, which is upstairs. Underneath us is our gallery and workshop. So, and actually going back to when I was at university, there was always very flexible spaces there. And so that was my vision for this building, is that it should be a flexible space. It can be a gallery when it needs to be. It can be a workshop. It can be a meeting space, performance space, all sorts of things. But we're very fortunate that we've got enough space for it to be, that whatever it needs to be. when the opportunity.
I think what's lovely as well is that you've got that gallery space, and it's, am I right? It's free to go and visit, to see exhibitions. I think that's an incredible thing to be able to do, actually.
Yes, I think for me, everything that we do is free for people to join in. That's just really important. So the only way you're going to develop new arts audiences is if you're going to give people the opportunity to test things, to try things, to sort of get to know whether they like them, free of charge. So, I mean, that's, it's not for everybody, but for us, that's quite important. And we try to take the work that we do. A lot of it happens in the public realm because that's where people are. So, yeah.
I'm kind of intrigued by the public realm work. I mean, the participatory work, I can clearly see where Strange Cargo have come from and how they've applied, all your expertise. But with the permanent public art, that was a slight shift for Strange Cargo then to venture into the sort of more permanent pieces.
Yes. I think we made the first public art in Folkestone back in 2000, and it wasn't a deliberate sort of thought process that we were going to end up creating a series of public artworks. It was just a one-off idea because I don't know if you remember back in the millennium, everyone thought that everything was going to fall out the sky and it was going to be quite a sort of devastating time. But we thought, it would be really nice to sort of try and celebrate with the townsfolk. And after sort of a bit of thinking about it, the millennium is about numbers. It's about sort of multiples. It's about years. And so it was, fortunate really that it's one of those rare opportunities where you can actually talk to people born across a whole century. So with the back of my hand, we were able to sort of make contact with a person born in every single year of the last century, starting with somebody who was 100 years old and finishing with the first baby born on the 1st of January in Folkestone. So we ended up being able to talk to all of those people. And it was really an extension of what I had done when I was studying at college, because I'd done sort of repeat sort of involving lots of people in things then, but it was sort of an evolution. You don't realise at the time, but you start to sort of see a pattern emerging. But we made the piece of work which existed first of all in the gallery, and then we raised enough money and were approached by the local authority to help with the restoration of the railway station. And we managed to find the resources to have the pans cast into bronze, and they're still there today, and they still mean something to people today, which is lovely because every person involved has a history with the town. So their families are still here, their friends are still here, and even though a lot of them have gone, their families still visit their hand.
It's a great location as well, isn't it, where it is?
Yes, absolutely.
Because you're literally arriving, leaving. It's everything, isn't it? You kind of connect with that piece of work if you're coming in as a visitor, or if you're leaving, or if you live there, or if you're using it. It's a great. Did you choose that location? Obviously, it was because it was part of the local authority restoring.
Yes, no, we didn't necessarily. No, it was what's his title? I think he was the conservation architect at the council at the time, Jeff Pearson. He knew that the railway station needed some works to bring it up to scratch, and it really was awful at the time. There was sort of green slime on the wall and one thing or another. And he knew that we were looking for a site for the hand. So he said would be interested, and actually worked out terrifically. It looks like it was made for the site, but that came along a bit later. But it won the Rouse Kent Public Art Award when it was installed. So back in the day.
Yeah, well, we have that in common because we won it as well, actually, in 2005. It was for the John Newling piece of work that we did.
Yes.
And I remember those awards. They were just a lovely thing to be part of. And if you were lucky to be shortlisted, it was incredible, wasn't it? It was amazing.
It was, absolutely.
But to win it was a really lovely thing, because they don't do it anymore, do they? So,
no.
Which is a shame, really.
It is a shame, yes.
It was really about Kent, wasn't it? And about making work in this area and being, sort of celebrated for it, really.
Yes, absolutely. It can end up being quite invisible if you're not sort of sure how to promote it. Yeah,
I agree with you.
Work.
Yeah, and I think, that's something that we, as a consultancy, as you as an arts organisation, we have to do. We have to do everything, don't we, to get to get all that work going. And the fact that you then self-initiate your work to the fact that you have to find the funding, Brigitte, that's a feast and a feat in itself. I mean, how... Yeah, to comprehend that you do that and then you're in your 30th year next year, I think that is an incredible achievement, because we know how hard it is to get funding or to even find work sometimes, to tender for work, to get those projects working.
Yes, no, it's true.
And to bring people along with it as well. You talk about participatory and using, you're bringing those people with you, aren't you, as well, at the same time. That's quite a big task. Yeah.
I suppose it's something that it means a lot to us. We know how to do it because we've been doing it for a long time. It's the raising money is never easy, and it's getting harder, as you know. So I don't know. We're just trying to plan for next year at the moment, and we have our applications in, waiting for decisions. Sometimes some of our work is commissioned. We've recently been commissioned to make one of our guidebooks for Dover by Dover Town Council, which is fabulous. And there's other commissions and other partnerships, but there's still money to find. And things like Cherry Vary Day, which is our carnival, which means an awful lot to us, and that's in its 29th year. That's one of the projects we raise the money for every year ourselves. And touch wood, it's still going. And we have a partner this year or next year with the Lees Lift, which has is being restored and reopened as part of a Heritage Lottery grant programme. But yes, it's juggling act.
It's a challenge, isn't it?
It is,
Do tell us about your resident platform programme. It's obviously your current public art programme, and it's this sort of collaborative practice involving professional artists and local residents. It sounds like a wonderful project, so do tell us a little bit more about that.
Okay, thanks. Well, the resident platform, we know that we know how to do it, but it's being able to share how we participate with communities, with other professional artists, because quite often artists are trained to be a sole practitioner. They don't necessarily have the sort of understanding of how to bring other people into their practice and to sort of share the opportunity to make art together. So the resident platform, we are very close to Folkestone West Station, which is literally, you can practically see it from our window here. And around the outside of the station buildings are lots of little square canopy supports. There used to be a glass roof canopy, and they're little bits of architectural sort of brickwork that are little white plinths. And we, through the discussion with South Eastern Railways, we've been given permission to locate our bronzes on these plinths, and there's 24 of them. And the resident platform really invites professional artists, most of them from out of the area, to come and to work with us and to make a bronze sculpture for one of the plinths using their own practice. It can be, something, we don't ask them just change how they work, but for a lot of them it's the first time they've been sort of had a work cast in bronze. But the deal is that they observe us making a companion piece with a community group. So so far we've worked with the library staff in Cheriton, with a group of local residents who've just responded to a call out, the cemetery volunteers who keep Cheriton Road Cemetery clean. We've just doing some work with the takeaway owners in Cheriton. So we tried to sort of find people who don't necessarily always join in with art projects and go and talk to them and invite them to be part of it. So for every piece that a professional artist will make, the community group will make a companion, and they will always be unveiled together. They will always be a pair of artworks. But it's not really about just the professional artists, about them understanding how we engage other people to be part of the process. And at no point does their artwork lose credibility, because I think there's always that anxiety if you're an artist that you're watering down the impact of what you're doing, but that's not the case. It's the works, they really are standing very strongly together, and the more that we install, you can really see that whole cultural conversation of a community starting to just present itself. So we've got 10 installed, we've got another 4 going in this year, we've got another 6 planned for next year, and we're getting to the end of the sort of the 24 plinths, but it's been an extraordinary thing, and you always wonder whether it's going to work when you start out, but it's really been a lovely thing, and it creates a cultural destination at the station. As you say, stations are places of comings and goings, as the hand station is, but it's lovely to be able to sort of do something that just changes what a place is, the reason reason people might go there.
It's a great opportunity for an artist as well, and because they can obviously create work, as you say, sometimes for the first time in bronze, so that's one thing. The other is observing you as a company working directly with your residents and getting people to participate. That learning must be, do some artists just want to get involved at that point, or are they kind of, is it quite strict that they are observing and learning?
No, that is the deal. And they've all been brilliant. I mean, it's just been an experience for them from the feedback that we've had, just that seeing how it happens and that it's not difficult. It's just it's a conversation. That people just sit down. They don't have any particular experience or previous sort of knowledge of how to sculpt or whatever. I mean, some people have more sort of have done more creative stuff than others, but generally they're just everyday lives haven't involved making a sculpture. And we sit down, and 3 or 4 hours later, there we are. They've got their pieces of wax or their clay, and it's ready to go to the foundry. And that's what's at the station. We don't tell people what to do. It's through those conversations that these things evolve. So, and the results of what you see at the station. And actually, it's quite interesting to look and think, I wonder which one's the artist. So we have a plaque under each one, but you'd be hard pushed to sort of know in some instances, because the pieces that the community have made, that they really are quite extraordinary. So it's a fascinating thing.
There's something very special about being located and embedded within a community for such a long time, isn't there?
There is,
that you're able to make so many meaningful and deep connections with where you live. I mean, just thinking back to the back of my hand, that's a very emotional piece, isn't it? A very emotive piece.
It is, and they do start to take on a life beyond your original concept. I mean, everybody was very well alive when we first cast their hands. But of course, there's probably 30% of the people are no longer with us. But the families have said to us, we go to the station and we touch our loved one's hand, and it feels more real and helps them to remember them. So that was, it wasn't a memorial when we made it, but it is a memorial to some people now.
Yeah,
how do you go about getting your artists then, Brigitte? Do you directly go to them, or do they come to you, or how does it
I've been working with a curator, Rich, that you sort of saw, doing, who his background is fine art, and he's he went to the Royal Academy. He's well connected within the art world, and he's suggested people that we may work with. So. In most of the instances, the artists that we've worked with so far, he's curated that. And we would have exhibitions in our gallery for most of the people that we've worked with as well. So we've just had Clara Hastrup, I don't know if you can see there, I know this won't be... but she's done a terrific exhibition downstairs, which has just come down, actually. But, it's fabulous. We get to bring some extraordinary artists and their art to the end of a residential street in Cheriton. Our gallery is a good space. It's a big space because of the nature of what the building used to be. So it's fabulous. And I think part of what we do is to want to bring the best that the arts can offer to people's doorsteps. They don't have to necessarily go to London to see something extraordinary. So, it's trying to sort of make sure that whatever we're doing, that we can ensure that the community gets to be part of that and to see it. But to bring really good art to here as well.
Yeah, high quality. That's
high quality. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Just want to come back to the funding and the self-initiative, because I still can't get my head around that you find all that funding. Is there any bugbears about that, or is there anything that you would like to change, or?
No, but only to have lots of money.
That would be...
No, it's one of those. I think you just have to have a very thick skin when it comes to fundraising, because 9 times out of 10 you won't be successful, but you just need to be able to move on. But generally over the years we've managed to either find partnerships or work out that the major projects that we've decided that we wanted to do have been self-initiated, particularly the participatory projects. In the early days when participation wasn't a thing and nobody really understood. People say, well, that's a lot of fun. You thought, well, it is a lot of fun, but it's not. There's more to it than that. There's, it's giving people sort of a place around the table in the cultural conversation who live somewhere. Because quite often, art is just brought in and presented to people, and that's it. But they're very rarely part of it. And for us, it's about being part of a wider group of people who have sort of played their part in making that cultural experience happen. So, yes, I think we've evolved our public art programme, understanding more and more what we're doing, how to involve people. The hands was the first thing. Other people's photographs was our second big public artwork, which I had a photograph of I grew up in Folkestone, so I had a photograph of my mum and dad in the town centre in the mid-50s, and when they were very young. And I thought, I wonder where this is. And I went out one day with a photograph and found it. I thought, well, if I've got this photograph, other people will have similar. And the premise of the public art project was that we wanted to find a similar photograph of somebody with friends and family in their picture for every street of the town. And amazingly, we did it. And we found a partnership that funded it. And the artwork is still in place today. And it won an extraordinary number of awards simply because it took public art to the places where people live. So you could open your front door and one of these photographs, which they're on metal panels and they've been in place since 2007 now, but they're outside people's front doors. And, they mean something to them because everybody knows this street, everybody understands photographs. It's trying to take the offer that you're making to people to join in as close to them as possible, because it has to be something that people are interested in doing. It's no good having what you think is the best idea in the world as an artist, but if people aren't interested, they won't join in, and then you don't have an artwork. So you've got to be very conscious of what would be an interesting idea for people to want to at least start the conversation with you.
I was going to ask you whether they were still there, actually. I was going to, because
majority of them still are, yes.
That's great. None of them have been, taken away and kept by people or anything like that.
Not that, no. I think a few of the lampposts have been replaced, and unfortunately they didn't make it across the new lampposts, but the majority are still there. There was 540.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, it's more the fact that people joined in, and it was just a lovely thing. And even though a lot of, there was, on several occasions people have come to me and said, oh, I meant to join in that, but, because I've got a great photograph. But I thought it's more the fact that the invitation is there, even if people choose not to join in, but that they know that they could have done. That's what's important, because that's quite rare.
Yeah, it is rare.
Yeah,
I agree.
And I suppose what you've built is this amazing track record of delivering projects like that. So in terms of getting, funding for new projects, you've kind of can prove what you've done over those years. That we find that if we want to do a project, particularly if we're working with commercial clients, housing developers, if we try and convince them to do something slightly different, because they come to the table with a lot of preconceived ideas. It can be really difficult because they haven't seen it done elsewhere.
Yes.
And so having that track record and say, but this has been hugely successful. This isn't a tangible object necessarily. It could turn into one, say, like you with the photographs outside. But if we're looking at something participatory or an events program or socially engaged practice, they can't necessarily understand that concept initially. So it's trying to convince them in some way, shape or form that is going to work. And I think Strange Cargo, you're living proof that you can make works.
It work. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it took a while, and most of the early projects, which we're very proud that we initiated, they were us making them happen. They weren't commissioned by anybody. I mean, we found partnerships in the end, but that was terrific. But it could certainly have just fallen flat and not happened. But we went on to make. We were talking about developers, and we worked with in Ashford a few years ago to make, when Elwick Place was being built in Ashford. We were commissioned to make a piece then by somebody who had experienced our work as a developer and enabled us to sort of access the local community. And it was the site of the new development was on the old cattle market, which had a huge local resonance. So we recorded all of the sort of importance of it in local people's sort of histories, and that's written into granite slabs on the pavement. So it's always actually saying something, giving people a voice, because change is inevitable, but you do want to record the sort of strength of people's feelings, and that's always there now. So the history of the site is written into the new development, which is great.
So as commissioners then, so obviously our role as public art consultants, we do end up, we work for commercial developers, but we do end up being the commissioners in finding the artists.
Yes.
What would you want to see those commissioners or us, or that our role in how we get to do or work with more people like Strange Cargo. You know, what should we be doing? What should we be?
I think just what we're doing at the moment is having those conversations, because I think, as you've just said, people sometimes can't understand what participation is and how it could possibly work, because it does sound a bit elusive, sort of as a concept. But yes, by being able to demonstrate a long practice and building relationships with people, I think that's important. And that's what our carnival has done over the years, because now it's in its 29th year. Those children from those early processions are now the parents and the teachers and the artists and more in our community. So they have that relationship with us. And I think it's about building relationships with people if you can. I mean, being lucky enough to have been in the same place for a long time does help that. People sort of learn to trust you, because we always try to do exactly what we say we're going to do. But having conversations with people who understand what it means, I think that's a huge open door to taking that next step.
Yeah. So if just looking to the future, what sort of public realm project would you love to do but have never had the opportunity to do? Yeah,
gosh, it's quite a hard one, that. Every time we thought of what we'd like to do, we try to find a way to make it happen. But I think for me, if I was thinking in the bigger world, with very large developments happening, new towns being built and that sort of thing, I think it's important not to underestimate how important celebration in the arts is, because that's a very recognisable form of sort of art gathering, and it's the first stepping stone to everything that comes afterwards, because everybody comes together, everybody has an opinion about something. It's not about doing things by committee, because I think that's quite difficult to do, but by sort of bringing people together and for them to embrace the arts and culture as part of the whole of the community is a very valuable first step. And in master planning for a new town, that shouldn't be the cherry on the cake at the end of it all. It should be one of the very first things that people talk about, is how can we make this into a cultured community that celebrates together, that recognises the value of coming together, and how can we enable that community to have the spaces and the infrastructure for that to happen. So I think that's, looking back at what I've learned, that's where I think I would pass on my knowledge, is to say, don't wait until the end to sort of stick it on the top of the cake.
I think we agree with you. We agree with you, because we have many a conversation where we're brought in at really late stages of projects, and then even silly things. Well, no, they're not silly actually. They are really important things, like when we go to a design team meeting, at the agenda, we're at the bottom of the agenda. But if you put us at the beginning of the agenda, then we could actually talk about everything, because art relates to everything,
and it's about people, and everywhere that is being built is any built environment only is animated when it's full of people, and you think don't lose sight of the fact that they need to come together. And with our Sheraton Light Festival event, which we've done for 5 years, or did on 5 separate occasions, the highest value that people sort of attributed to it was that it brought the community together. Yeah. We always had it at the end of February, which was shockingly cold. And the first thing people would always say, my God, it was so cold, why'd you do it then? But we did it because people needed that opportunity to get out of their houses, to congregate, because they'd been starved of that over the winter months.
Horrible, isn't it?
But we close the high street to traffic, we bring in international artists, but we also bring artists to work in people's front rooms and illuminate their windows, and so it's a real layered effect, and everybody feels part of it. But bringing the community together always came through as a very important part of that.
And I think post-COVID, that remains, doesn't it? If not, we understand that all the more now.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. Unfortunately, the money that sort of helped to pay for these things doesn't seem to be quite so available now. The last Light Festival we did was 3 weeks before the pandemic, and unfortunately, we've not been able to sort of raise the funds to make that happen since. But fingers crossed,
Yeah, but it's so important with the master planning. Even we find getting just an artist at the table with the design team to be thinking, and we're probably thinking more in terms of permanent works, although we always try and bring a temporary programme alongside that. That is the difficult sell, though. That is always the difficult one.
Yes,
and it's how we find ways to convince developers that that's as important, if not more important, than anything permanent left. Because actually, the permanent works can come out of the temporary programme.
Yes. It's building relationships with people and working out what you're trying to say, what relationship you want to have to the site, and to the people that are going to sort of be the consumers of your art, whatever it might be. I mean, there was an occasion when we were commissioned by Folkestone Triennial, which was terrific, but we just delivered other people's photographs, and they invited us to be a triennial artist and to propose something. And in the end, we thought we don't want to put another object in the landscape, so we proposed that we create a guidebook for Folkestone, but it using the same skills that we have, but instead of having an object, we had something that changed your view of where you were by the information you had in the book. So people could carry this sort of pocket-sized book around. I'll show you. I know this won't show on the podcast, but there's one we've just done for Dover. But so there's
a big old chunky book.
A big old chunky book gives lots of people the opportunity to tell you what's important to them about where they live, why it's important, and it. For this particular triennial, the theme was 1,000,000 miles from home, and we weren't 1,000,000 miles from home, so we could bring that to the table, and we created this book, which has gone on to now become a series. We've just been commissioned by Dover Town Council to make one for Dover, and that's being launched very soon. But they've been bestsellers, strangely. We've sold more than...
Brilliant.
We've outsold Harry Potter in our local
we heard that. That's amazing.
But yes, it's their biggest ever selling book in Waterstones in Folkestone. You think, well, it just shows that, local people have a lot to say about, and they're the experts on where they live. So, that you can find a way, whatever it might be, to sort of put that art into an art form.
I think there's another important issue is time as well, actually. And I think we struggle with getting enough time to do things. And it sounds to me like you do take your time, and it's the right way to do it, to allow that conversation, to allow those people to come out from behind their doors that may not begin with, and then see something happening and might then become involved. Yes. And I think that's a really important and it's a priceless thing, really, having the time, isn't it?
Yes, you're right. It's hard to do it sometimes, but if you are genuine about participation, you need to be able to tell people what you're doing, give them time to process what that is, think whether they'd like to be involved, then they've got to get in touch with you, and all of those things, they take time, but you get used to being a bit pushy and and just going and wandering up to people in the street and just waving a copy of what previous version under their nose and just saying, this is what we're doing, and they go, oh, that looks interesting, and they don't think they know anything until you start chatting to them, and then they just end up, the pearls sort of fall from their mouths. They just tell you wonderful stuff. So yes, I think it's great. It's fascinating working with different communities. You learn so much.
Well, we've learned so much from you. It's really interesting. I know you've already for people who are listening to this podcast, we do ask a few questions before we get our guests on. It's only fair. And one of them is a little known fact about our guest speaker. And I know you've mentioned this before, but is there anything else that a little known, unknown fact about you, Brigitte, that we don't know? It's not a trick question. Do you still practice? Are you still making your own work as an artist?
I do, yes.
Or do you feel like you're making it through Strange Cargo? How does that work?
Well, I do feel like I'm making it through Strange Cargo, but I do have a separate practice, which, but I think all of the work that I do is about connecting people to the arts. And my personal practice is I make portraits and images out of plasticine, but they look like paintings. And what's interesting is people's reaction to it. That's the idea, is that you're taking away a barrier. I think quite often people don't feel connected to the arts, and they feel a bit sort of reverential towards it. They don't quite sure what to say. But if you tell people that a picture is plasticine and not oil paint, all of a sudden they have a relationship with it, because they know the smell, they know the feel, they know what it does. And I think it's just thinking, well, actually, there's no reason you can't make pictures out of other things that people feel a bit more, connected to. So it's just a way of sort of, I find it fascinating to sort of work like that.
Yeah. That's brilliant. It's been so nice to chat to you,
Yeah, it's
Bridget,
been
and
lovely.
hear about your work. And yeah, it's absolutely fascinating and inspiring as well.
Oh,
actually.
thank you. Lovely to
So,
talk to you again as
yeah,
well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining
Okay.
us.
No, thank you. Take care. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Engaged, creative, curious, courageous and valued, Frances Knight is an award-winning independent public art consultancy based in South East England with over 20 years' experience offering expert advice and management in commissioning high-quality public art for the public realm. As co-founders and directors of the business, Louise Francis and Laura Knight commission professional artists from across the UK to create ambitious public realm artworks in a variety of locations. The consultancy partners closely with housing developers, design teams, social housing associations and local authorities, together with a wide range of community groups, to create brave, ambitious, thought-provoking art for public spaces.
Next week, we talk to Chris Dixon, Cultural Industries Manager at Ashford Borough Council, on surviving or not surviving in the arts, on building networks and relationships,
On creative hooks and creating the conditions for public art to happen, and on the need for vibrancy, fun and innovation. Plus, network rail grey, fiberglass dogs and public art in football stadiums. If you enjoyed this episode, we would really appreciate it if you could rate, review and subscribe to our podcasts. It helps us spread the word on demystifying public art.